Have you ever wondered why so many men our age are choosing to live life solo? Is it the freedom of having no one to answer to, or is there something more profound behind it? Well, stick around, because we're going to unravel this mystery together. Now, let's get one thing straight. This isn't about passing judgment or telling anyone how they should live their lives. Heck, we've all earned the right to live exactly how we want. But it's worth exploring why the solo life has become such a popular choice for older men. Whether you're already riding solo or just curious about the trend, this conversation might shine a light on some thoughts you've had yourself but never put into words. You see, the world has changed so much since we were young men. Back then, life had its own rhythm, its own set of rules. But now, everything feels, well, different. Relationships, family dynamics, even our sense of purpose, it all shifts as we grow older. For some, this change opens doors to new beginnings. For others, it's a chance to finally enjoy some peace and quiet after decades of responsibility. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when a new video drops. Your support truly makes a difference. If you found value in this video, a like and share would mean a lot in helping me reach more people with these important lessons. And I'd love to hear from you. If you're enjoying this topic, leave a 1 in the comments or a 0 if you'd like to see something different. Your feedback helps me improve and bring you the content you want. So, grab a cup of coffee or maybe a nice glass of iced tea and let's dive in. Point 1. The modern dating scene. Dating. It used to be so simple, didn't it? You'd ask a girl to the local dance or maybe share a milkshake at the diner, and that was that. But today, well, it's a whole different ball game. The modern dating scene for us older men feels less like a friendly stroll and more like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. And let's be honest, it can be downright intimidating. Back in our day, roles were pretty clear-cut. Men were the providers, women took care of the home. It wasn't perfect, but at least we knew where we stood. Fast forward a few decades, and those lines have blurred beyond recognition. The women in our age bracket now, they're not just homemakers. They're CEOs, community leaders, and fiercely independent individuals. And while that's something to admire, it can also feel like uncharted territory for men who grew up with a different playbook. Let's not forget the rise of dating apps and online profiles. Just the thought of creating one can make a man's head spin. Writing a bio about yourself? Uploading pictures? Navigating all those swipes and matches? It's a far cry from the days of simply showing up to the local dance and letting your charm do the talking. And what in the world is ghosting? Anyway, for a lot of us, it feels like trying to learn a new language without a dictionary. But it's not just the technology or the blurred roles that make modern dating tricky. It's the emotional side of it too. Many of us are looking for companionship, not a complete overhaul of how we view relationships. We're tired of the hustle and bustle. The idea of sitting across the table from someone who wants to dissect every aspect of a relationship? Exhausting. At this stage in life, we're not necessarily looking to reinvent the wheel. We just want a smooth ride. And here's the thing. Some of us have chosen to step away from dating altogether. It's not that we're bitter or unwilling to adapt. It's that we've lived full lives, and we've earned the right to prioritize simplicity and peace. If that means trading romantic dinners for a night at home with the dog and a good movie, so be it. Point 2. The sweet sound of silence. Now, let me tell you a little secret that many people don't seem to understand. Being alone and being lonely are two entirely different things. For a lot of us older men, living solo isn't a sad story. It's a celebration of peace and freedom. After decades of balancing the chaos of family life, work, and relationships, the quiet can feel like a reward, not a punishment. Think about it. When was the last time you got to do exactly what you wanted when you wanted? No compromises, no negotiations. If you want to watch John Wayne movies at 3 in the morning, you can. If you feel like eating ice cream for breakfast, who's going to stop you? This kind of freedom isn't just a luxury, it's a gift we've earned. Now, don't get me wrong, companionship has its charms. But let's not pretend it doesn't come with strings attached. Relationships, even the best ones, require effort. There's compromising over the thermostat, deciding whose family to visit during the holidays, or even agreeing on what to have for dinner. It's not bad, it's just life. But for many of us, stepping away from all that feels like a breath of fresh air. And let's talk about pets for a moment. A loyal dog or a relaxed cat can offer companionship that's as uncomplicated as it is comforting. They're always happy to see you. They don't care if you're wearing mismatched socks, and they certainly don't ask you to attend a family reunion. For many of us, that's the perfect balance between companionship and independence. But solitude isn't just about freedom. It's also about rediscovering who we are. When you've spent years being someone's husband, father, or boss, it's easy to forget who you are. Living alone gives you the chance to reconnect with yourself, to figure out what truly makes you happy without the distractions of external expectations. It's a time to embrace hobbies, reflect on life, and just breathe. So, no, choosing to live solo doesn't mean we're bitter or antisocial. It means we're finding contentment in our own company. And honestly, isn't that something everyone should strive for? Point 3. Small town, big challenge. Now, let's talk about something many of us know all too well, small town life. It has its charm, doesn't it? Everyone knows your name. The neighbors wave as you walk by, and life moves at a pace slow enough to savor. But when it comes to dating in a small town, that's a different story altogether. For starters, the dating pool in small-town America is more of a puddle. Finding someone who's single, in your age range, and shares your interests feels like trying to win the lottery. And let's not forget the fact that in these tight-knit communities, everyone knows everyone's business. Go out for coffee with a lady, and by the time you get home, half the town has already formed their own opinions about your relationship. It's like living in a real-life soap opera, minus the glamorous lighting. Then there's the issue of familiarity. In big cities, the options are endless: senior centers, dance classes, meetup groups. But in a small town, you're probably running into the same people you've known for decades. Maybe she's your old high school classmate, or maybe you've already been introduced through mutual friends 3 times. It can feel like you're walking in circles, looking for something or someone new. But it's not just about the lack of options. At this stage of life, we're a little more specific about what we want in a partner. Maybe you're looking for someone who shares your love of early morning fishing trips or enjoys a good road trip with plenty of stops for beef jerky. Those preferences narrow the pool even further. It's not about being picky, it's about knowing what works for you at this stage of life. So, what do? Well, some of us adapt. Instead of focusing on dating, we invest our time in other things that bring us joy: volunteering at the library, spending quality time with our grandkids, or finally tackling that novel we've always wanted to write. Life doesn't stop just because you're single, and there's plenty of fulfillment to be found outside of romance. And hey, if love comes knocking, that's great. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. We're out there living our best lives, even if that means being the only single guy at the town's 4th of July picnic. After all, someone's got to judge the pie contest, right? So tell me, what's your favorite part about small-town living? And if you're single in a small town, how have you handled the dating scene? Share your thoughts below. Point 4. Money talks. It's not the most romantic topic, but at this stage in life, it's as important as remembering to take your daily vitamins. When it comes to dating and relationships, money isn't just a consideration, it's often a deal breaker. You see, many of us have spent decades building our nest eggs. We've worked hard, saved diligently, and made sacrifices to secure our financial independence. The thought of risking all that for a new relationship? It's about as appealing as a root canal. Divorce taught a lot of us just how expensive relationships can be. Losing half of everything you've worked for, your home, your savings, your retirement plans, it's not just a financial hit. It's an emotional one too. And let's face it, at this age, there's no time to start over financially. But it's not just about protecting what we have. It's also about the potential complications a new relationship might bring. What if she has debt? Medical bills that stretch higher than the Rockies? Credit card balances that make you break out in a cold sweat? Do we really want to take that on? It's not about being unkind. It's about being realistic. Financial independence is precious, and many of us aren't willing to compromise it for the sake of companionship. And then there's the matter of shared expenses. Getting into a relationship often means combining finances, making joint decisions, and sharing responsibilities. For a lot of us, it feels like being back at work, except this time, there's no retirement plan. Add to that the potential impact on your legacy. Many of us want to leave something behind for our kids and grandkids. A new relationship could complicate those plans in ways we'd rather avoid. It's not cold-hearted, it's practical. At this age, we've earned the right to put our peace of mind and financial stability first. After all, money gives us the freedom to do the things we love. Whether it's traveling, spoiling the grandkids, or finally buying that fishing boat we've been dreaming of. Point 5. Confidence crisis. Dating in your 70s or 80s isn't the same as it was when we were 20. Back then, we might have been brimming with energy and self-assurance. But now? Well, it's a whole different ballgame. First off, the dating world has changed so much it feels almost unrecognizable. What the heck is ghosting? And why does everyone seem to be meeting their matches on apps instead of at the local diner or community event? The whole process can feel overwhelming, and for some of us, just thinking about it makes us want to crawl back into our comfort zones. And then there's the fear of rejection. Let's face it, getting a no doesn't sting any less just because we've got a few more gray hairs. In fact, it might sting even more now. At 20, a rejection was a bruise to the ego. At 70 or 80, it can feel like a punch to the gut. It's not just about our confidence in dating. It's about feeling out of touch in a fast-paced, modern world where conversations often revolve around things we don't understand. TikTok trends, social media, and apps with names we can barely pronounce. This lack of confidence can quickly spiral into something bigger. The more we avoid putting ourselves out there, the more out of practice we become. It's like a vicious cycle. We don't date because we're not confident, and we're not confident because we don't date. Round and round it goes until the very thought of asking someone out feels as daunting as climbing a mountain in your slippers. But here's the thing. Feeling insecure or unsure doesn't make you weak. In fact, it makes you human. And believe it or not, you're not alone in this. Plenty of older men feel exactly the same way. The problem is, we've been conditioned to stay quiet about it. We've spent our lives being the strong ones, the providers, the fixers. Admitting we feel vulnerable? That's tougher than opening a jar of pickles without help. So what do? For many of us, the answer is to retreat. We convince ourselves we're happy being alone, and maybe we are. But deep down, it's also about avoiding the risk of putting ourselves out there. And you know what? That's okay. It's not about forcing ourselves into situations that feel uncomfortable. It's about making peace with where we are and moving forward in whatever way feels right. Point 6. Health matters. All right, let's face a topic that none of us particularly enjoy talking about but can't ignore: our health. At this stage in life, staying on top of our health feels like a full-time job. Between doctor's appointments, medication schedules, and trying to remember where we left our glasses, usually on top of our heads, it's easy to feel like we've got enough on our plate without adding a relationship into the mix. For many older men, health issues can feel like uninvited guests at the party. Chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, or arthritis don't just affect how we move, they affect how we see ourselves. They can take a toll on our confidence and make us wonder how others perceive us. The fear of becoming a burden, whether real or imagined, weighs heavily on our minds. After all, we spent decades being the strong ones, the protectors. The idea of needing help instead of offering it? That's a tough pill to swallow. And let's not tiptoe around the elephant in the room. Sexual health. Things don't always work the way they used to, and that can be frustrating and embarrassing. Whether it's due to medications, stress, or just the natural aging process, intimacy becomes more complicated. For many of us, it's easier to avoid the issue altogether than risk the discomfort of navigating those waters with a new partner. But it's not just about sex. Even the simple joys of companionship, long walks, dancing, or travel, can feel like a challenge when energy levels are lower and aches and pains are higher. Finding someone who understands and accepts these limitations isn't impossible, but it can feel daunting. So, what's the solution? Many of us focus on our health first and foremost. We adapt, finding new ways to stay active and engaged. Whether it's joining a local walking group, taking up hobbies that keep us moving, or simply enjoying the small pleasures of life, like a quiet evening with a good book. The idea of bringing someone else into this mix, though? For some, it feels unfair, to them and to us. Choosing to live solo doesn't mean we're giving up. It means we're being realistic about our needs and limitations. We've earned the right to prioritize our well-being and to live life on our own terms, free from the worry of being a burden or facing potential embarrassment. Point 7. Family matters. Now, let's wade into one of the trickiest parts of life in our later years, family dynamics. At this stage, dating isn't just about you and another person. It's about two families, two sets of grandkids, and sometimes more emotional baggage than an airport carousel. Let's be honest, it's a lot to take on. For starters, most women in our age group come with ready-made families. They've got kids, grandkids, and maybe even great-grandkids. They're the glue that holds their families together, and that's something to admire. But when you step into their lives, you're not just dating them. You're stepping into the whole family picture. That means navigating relationships with adult children who might see you as the new guy, grandkids who don't know what to make of you, and the inevitable whispers about inheritances. Imagine this. You're finally comfortable in your quiet routine, and suddenly you're hosting Sunday dinners with a new set of grandkids running around, asking questions and spilling juice on the rug. It's not that we don't like kids. Heck, many of us are doting grandfathers. But there's a world of difference between spoiling your own grandkids and becoming Grandpa 2.0 to someone else's. And then there's our own families. Let's not forget that our kids might have opinions about us dating again. They might worry about how it'll affect their relationship with us, or even raise concerns about finances and inheritance. It's not uncommon for adult children to feel protective or territorial when their dad starts seeing someone new. Blending families? That's another challenge altogether. It's hard enough getting your own family to agree on Thanksgiving plans, let alone merging two sets of traditions and dynamics. It can feel like trying to mix oil and water, except the oil is on fire and the water is gasoline. For many of us, the thought of stirring up all that drama just isn't worth it. We've worked hard to create a peaceful, drama-free existence, and we're not keen on disrupting that for the sake of a new relationship. It's not about avoiding love. It's about valuing the peace and stability we've built for ourselves. Point 8. Scars of the past. Let's take a moment to get a little deeper. At this stage in life, many of us carry emotional scars from the past. Whether it's the heartbreak of divorce, the loss of a loved one, or the challenges of life not turning out quite as we planned, these experiences leave marks that don't fade easily. And when it comes to opening ourselves up to a new relationship, those scars often weigh heavier than we'd like to admit. For a lot of us, divorce wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the demolition of an entire life plan. You're not just saying goodbye to a partner. You're saying goodbye to dreams, routines, and a future you thought was set in stone. The financial toll is bad enough. Houses, savings, retirement plans, all split down the middle. But the emotional toll? That's something else entirely. Trust can feel like a fragile thing, and the idea of risking it again is enough to make a man hesitate. And then there's the fear of repeating old mistakes. After living through a messy breakup or years of compromise that didn't pay off, the thought of walking down that road again can feel overwhelming. It's like trying to touch a hot stove after being burned. Your instincts kick in to protect you, even if the circumstances are different. For many of us, these past experiences also shape how we see ourselves. Being a husband, a provider, or a partner was a core part of our identity for so long. Losing that role can feel like losing a piece of yourself. Rebuilding takes time, and for some, it feels safer to focus on self-recovery rather than jumping into something new. But here's the thing. It's not about bitterness or giving up on love. It's about knowing our limits and respecting them. For many of us, the solo life offers the chance to heal, reflect, and rediscover who we are outside of relationships. It's a choice, not a resignation. Now that we've journeyed through the ins and outs of solo living in the golden years, let's bring it all together. Life at this stage is a unique mix of freedom, reflection, and yes, even a little hesitation. Whether you've chosen to stay single by design or it just happened that way, one thing is clear. You're not alone in this. For many older men, the choice to live solo isn't about avoiding relationships or shutting the door on love. It's about recognizing what brings the most peace and fulfillment. We've spent decades living for others, raising families, building careers, and meeting responsibilities. Now, for the first time in a long time, It's about living for ourselves. And there's no shame in that. Now, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone stepping into their golden years? Or maybe you've got a favorite story or lesson you've learned along the way. Drop it in the comments. I promise, your wisdom is something we can all learn from. Until next time, keep your chin up, your heart open, and your life simple. After all, the golden years are called golden for a reason. Stay well, stay happy, and don't forget, life's too short for bad coffee or bad company. See you soon.